This is the smoking gun. This is the document that turns a presidency into a crime scene. And if you're watching this right now, I need you to pay close attention because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. You probably lost money this week, maybe a little, maybe your entire life savings. You saw the headlines everywhere. You saw the tweets going viral. You watched the president of the United States stand on that stage in Davos and declare with the full weight of his office that the United States had secured exclusive sovereign rights to the mineral wealth of Greenland. You watched the stock ticker for Greenland Resources Corp, GRC, skyrocket from $2 to $200 in just 48 hours. You watched the entire MAGA movement, institutional investors, and pension funds pour billions into what they believed was the deal of the century. And then, and stay with me here because this gets crazy, you watched it all collapse to zero. As of 6 a.m. this morning, Monday, January 26, 2026, we finally know why. And trust me, the truth is far worse than you imagined. A massive data leak being called the Arctic Papers has just been dumped onto the dark web by the activist collective known as the Glass House. It contains 50,000 emails, encrypted signal chats, and bank transfer records from the inner circle of the Trump White House. And listen carefully. What it reveals is not a diplomatic misunderstanding. It's not a negotiation tactic gone wrong. It reveals a premeditated, mathematically precise financial crime. The documents show, and I have receipts, that there never was a deal. The Danish government never agreed to sell. The local parliament in Nuuk never agreed to lease. That treaty Trump waved around at his rallies, it was a non-binding cultural exchange memorandum that his team knowingly mistranslated and presented to the entire world as a property deed. But why? Why would they do this? Because they desperately needed the cash. And here's where it gets insane. The leak exposes a direct link between the Greenland pump and the Japan bond crash we covered yesterday. It shows that key administration insiders and a mysterious shell company registered in the Cayman Islands were facing catastrophic margin calls on Monday. They needed a liquidity event fast. They needed a bubble, so they manufactured one. And you need to understand this. We are going to walk you through the anatomy of the biggest pump and dump scheme in human history. We're going to name the shell companies. We're going to read you the actual emails where they literally joke about selling ice to Eskimos. And we're going to explain why the SEC, the DOJ, and the Southern District of New York are currently in a race to see who can indict the president's inner circle first. The Greenland deal wasn't statecraft. It was a rug pull, and you were the mark. Now, to understand how they pulled this off, and this is where it gets technical, but stay with me, we have to go back to the setup. The genius of this scam, and I hate to admit it, but it was genius, was that it relied on a kernel of truth. Everyone knows Greenland is incredibly valuable. It has rare earth elements, REEs, neodymium, dysprosium, terbium. These are literally the vitamins of the modern economy. You cannot build an F-35 fighter jet, a Tesla battery, or even an iPhone without them. Currently, and this is the key, China controls 90% of the global supply. For years, the U.S. deep state has legitimately wanted to break that monopoly. The Pentagon absolutely wants access to Greenland. Trump's team took that legitimate strategic desire and weaponized it for pure profit. Let me show you the timeline of deception. January 10th, the first rumors leak out. Sources tell Fox Business that a historic agreement is near. GRC stock, which was a dormant penny stock with literally no employees and one expired mining permit, jumps from $2.10 to $5. People are starting to notice. January 15th, and here's where the manipulation really begins. The president tweets, "Greenland is coming home. Huge news soon. China is out." The stock hits $25. Retail investors start piling in like crazy. The Trump train forums are absolutely on fire. They're calling it the Louisiana Purchase 2.0. Can you believe it? January 20th, inauguration anniversary. The press secretary holds a briefing, and watch this move carefully. She holds up a thick document bound in leather. She says the president has signed a framework for resource sovereignty. But here's the trick. She doesn't release the actual text. She just holds it up for the cameras. The stock hits $80. January 22nd, the Davos speech. This was the absolute climax, the peak of the scam. Trump stands on the world stage and says, and I quote, "We have total control." He explicitly mentions Greenland Resources Corp as the primary partner for the development. And let me be crystal clear, this is the illegal part. A sitting president pumping a specific penny stock from the podium. The stock hits $200. The market cap of this empty shell company briefly, and I'm not kidding, exceeds Ford Motor Company. But here's the reality check, and this will make you angry. What was actually in that leather binder? According to the Arctic Papers, it was a draft copy of a 2019 climate study. What did the Danes actually sign? They signed a memorandum of understanding on Arctic research and education. It authorized a few student exchanges and a joint study on polar bears. That's literally it. There were no mining rights whatsoever. There was no sovereignty transfer. There was no exclusion zone for China. The entire narrative was a complete fabrication designed to last exactly 1 week, just long enough for the insiders to sell at the top, and sell they absolutely did. Now let's get into the documents, because this is the evidence that will put people in prison. The leak contains a folder titled Project Iceberg. This appears to be the internal code name for the entire operation. Email number 1, and I want you to listen to this carefully, dated January 5th, 2026, from Advisor A. We're redacting the name for YouTube policy, but think son-in-law archetype, to a senior hedge fund manager at Polaris Capital. Subject line, the liquidity problem. Text of the email, we are underwater on the yen trade. The Japan thing is going to blow up in our faces next week. We need a bridge. How fast can we move the GRC vehicle? The reply will shock you. The vehicle is ready. We control 85% of the float through the offshore shells, but we need a catalyst. We need volume. Can the big guy drop the news before the Japan margin calls hit on Tuesday? Email number 2, and this one is even more damning, dated January 12th, 2026. From the White House Communications Director to Advisor A. Subject, the map. Text, the Danes are freaking out. They say they haven't agreed to anything. The Prime Minister is refusing to take the call. Reply from Advisor A, and read this line carefully. It doesn't matter what they say. We just need the headline to stick for 72 hours. Run the map graphic with the U.S. flag over nuke. Fox will pick it up. By the time the Danes issue a denial, we will be out. By the time they issue a denial, we will be out. That is the line right there. That is the proof of intent to defraud. They knew it was fake. They knew the correction was coming. They just needed a 3-day window to dump their shares on the American public, and it gets worse. The leaked chat logs from what they called the Algorithm 45 group show them discussing using bot farms to hype the stock on Reddit and Twitter. User MAGA Whale writes, get the meme team on GRC. Tell them it's the crypto killer. Tell them it's backed by gold. User West Wing Actual replies, done. The boss is going to mention it in the state preview. This is market manipulation on an industrial scale, coordinated directly from the executive branch of the United States government. So who made the money and where did it go? Because this is where it gets really interesting. The Glass House didn't just leak emails. They leaked the blockchain transaction IDs and the Swift wire logs. The shell company, Greenland Resources Corp., GRC, this company was incorporated in Delaware in 2024. It listed its headquarters as a P.O. box in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Its CEO is a man named Lars Jensen. Reporters tracked Lars Jensen down this morning. And you won't believe this. He's a ski instructor in Aspen who used to caddy for a certain Trump family member. He was a complete straw man, a front. The shareholders? The cap table of GRC was hidden behind an absolute maze of LLCs. Patriot Holdings, LLC, Cayman Islands. Arctic Strategy Fund, Cyprus. Freedom Minerals, Ltd, Bermuda. The leak decodes all these LLCs, and guess what? They trace back to a trust fund managed by the family office of a senior White House advisor. And most explosively, one of the accounts traces directly back to a blind trust associated with the president himself. The cash out happened like this. On Thursday, January 22nd, the day of the Davos speech, the day the stock hit 200, these 3 LLCs sold $4.2 billion worth of stock. They sold into the rally. They sold to the pension funds. They sold to retail investors. They sold to MAGA moms and pops who thought they were buying a piece of American history. Now, here's the connection to Japan that makes this whole thing make sense. This is the crucial piece of the puzzle. Why did they need $4 billion right now because of the Japan bond crash? The leak shows that this same family office was heavily leveraged in the yen carry trade. When the Bank of Japan raised rates on Monday, they got a margin call for roughly $3.5 billion. If they hadn't paid it, they would have been completely insolvent. Their entire empire would have collapsed. So they used the Greenland hoax to rob the American public to pay off their Japanese debts. They transferred the wealth of the middle class to Japanese banks to save their own skin. It's a Ponzi scheme built on top of a geopolitical crisis. While the financial crime is incredibly complex, the diplomatic crime is brutally simple. We have now heard from the Danish government, and they are no longer being polite. The Danish foreign minister gave a press conference an hour ago, and he was visibly shaking with anger. He held up the memorandum that Trump claimed was a deed. This document, he said, trembling with rage, is a standard agreement to share weather data. It is 3 pages long. It does not mention mining. It does not mention sovereignty. It does not mention a lease. The President of the United States looked the world in the eye and lied about the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark. He went even further. He revealed that during the so-called negotiations, the Trump team didn't send diplomats. They sent real estate lawyers. They came into my office, the minister said, and they put a map on the table. They pointed to the Thule Air Base and said, "We are expanding this to the coast. Sign here or we'll tariff your Lego exports." It wasn't a deal. It was a shakedown, pure extortion. And when the Danes refused, Trump just pretended they said yes anyway. This explains the walkout at Davos. The European leaders knew. They knew Trump was lying. They walked out because they refused to be props in a stock market scam. They weren't weak, as Trump claimed. They were the only ones telling the truth. The fatal insult tweet where Trump called them vassals, that was his reaction to being caught. He was trying to bully them into silence, pay up or shut up. He was terrified they would expose the lie before the trade settled. Now the legal wheels are turning, and they're turning incredibly fast. The SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, halted trading on GRC at 9:30 a.m. this morning. The stock is frozen at 0.42 cents. The SEC Enforcement Division has announced a formal investigation into market manipulation and insider trading regarding Arctic securities. Usually the SEC is slow, bureaucratic, but the evidence here is completely public. Rule 10b-5 makes it illegal to make false statements to affect a stock price. The President of the United States made false statements. The stock went up. His trust fund sold at the top. That is a slam dunk case. The DOJ, Department of Justice. And this is tricky. Can you indict a sitting president for securities fraud? The OLC, Office of Legal Counsel memos say no, but here's the thing. You can indict his advisors. You can indict his son-in-law. You can indict the ski instructor CEO. We're hearing that the Southern District of New York, SDNY, the prosecutors who have been hunting Trump for decades, are already preparing subpoenas right now. They're going to flip the ski instructor. Once he talks, and he will talk, the conspiracy reaches straight to the Oval Office. The wire fraud statute applies here. Because the emails and the money cross state lines and international borders, this falls squarely under federal wire fraud statutes. Each email, each wire transfer is a separate count. We're talking about potentially hundreds of years of prison time for the participants. And let's not forget the class action lawsuits coming. By Monday, every trial lawyer in America will be suing the Trump Organization on behalf of investors who lost money. They will demand discovery. They will get the emails. The civil courts might destroy Trump before the criminal courts even get started. This is the political death blow, and here's why. Scandals usually don't hurt Trump because his base thinks the system is rigged against him. But this time, he rigged the system against them. The victims of the Greenland scam aren't coastal elites. They're the true believers. They're the people who watch OAN. They're the people who follow the Q influencers who pushed this stock hard. They put their life savings into GRC because they trusted Trump, and Trump used them as exit liquidity. We're seeing videos on TikTok right now of guys in MAGA hats literally crying. One said, "I put my kid's college fund in GRC because he said it was a sure thing. It's gone. He stole it. He sold us out to pay the Japanese banks." This breaks the bond completely. You can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and maybe get away with it, but you cannot steal money from your own supporters. That is the one sin that a populist leader cannot commit, ever. The protests are swelling because now they're joined by the scammed investor brigade. They aren't chanting resist, they're chanting refund. There's a subplot here involving crypto, and it's absolutely wild. The leak reveals that part of the pump involved a new cryptocurrency called Arctic Coin. It was marketed as being backed by the mineral rights of Greenland. Sounds legit, right? Wrong. It turns out Arctic Coin was minted by the same shell company in Bermuda. They sold $500 million worth of these tokens to crypto investors. The tokens are now worth absolutely zero. The wallet addresses show that the proceeds from the crypto sale were funneled directly into a super PAC for the 2026 midterms. This is a violation of campaign finance law so egregious it makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. They laundered fraud money into campaign cash. This explains why Fox News turned on him. Rupert Murdoch knew. His financial analysts saw the GRC pump happening. They saw the volume. They knew it was fake. Murdoch realized that if Fox promoted this stock and it crashed, Fox would be legally liable. They would be sued for aiding and abetting securities fraud. That's why they cut the feed. That's why they blacked him out mid-speech. They weren't being woke. They were protecting their own balance sheet. Fox saved itself by sacrificing Trump. And now they're running the Arctic Papers story 24/7. They're positioning themselves as the truth tellers who tried to warn the audience. We are witnessing the end of the business genius myth. For decades, Trump sold the image that he was a master deal maker, the art of the deal. The Greenland hoax exposes the brutal reality. He's a con artist. He didn't make a deal. He faked a deal to pump a stock. That isn't capitalism. That's straight up theft. The Greenland deal will go down in history alongside the South Sea bubble and Enron. But the damage here isn't just financial, it's national, it's institutional. He degraded the office of the presidency to the level of a boiler room scam. He turned the State Department into a marketing arm for a penny stock. As the markets close today, the wealth is gone, the trust is gone, and the presidency is effectively over. Donald Trump is no longer the leader of the free world. He's target number one for the SEC. Make sure you subscribe because we will be tracking every single indictment. The Glass House says they have more files ready to drop. They say the next dump is about the Election Integrity Commission. If you thought the Greenland scam was bad, wait until you see the voting machine emails. Let me explain exactly how they hid the ownership, because this is the technical part that the DOJ will focus on, and it's actually fascinating. They used a structure called a Russian doll LLC. Company A in Wyoming is owned by Company B in Delaware, which is owned by Company C in the Cayman Islands, which is owned by a trust in the Cook Islands. The Cook Islands has strict secrecy laws, but the leak contained the beneficial ownership forms from the Cayman Bank. These forms require the true owner to be listed for anti-money laundering, AML compliance. On the form for Patriot Holdings LLC, the signature is not a lawyer's signature. It's a familiar scrawl in black Sharpie. That signature is the nail in the coffin. It proves knowledge. It proves control. The leak includes the actual source code for the bots used to hype the stock. The bots were programmed to scrape news headlines about Greenland and repost them with bullish hashtags like Greenland Gold Rush and Trump Trade of the Century. They used AI to generate completely fake due diligence reports claiming GRC had found trillions in gold reserves. These reports were posted to Seeking Alpha and Reddit. This is automated securities fraud. It implicates the tech platforms too. Why didn't Twitter stop it? Why didn't Reddit stop it? This will lead to a massive regulatory crackdown on social media finance. Notice who's not defending Trump today. Jim Jordan? Silent. Marjorie Taylor Greene? Silent. Even they know you don't defend a Ponzi scheme. They're watching the base betrayal happen in real time. They know that if they defend GRC, their own voters who lost money will turn on them instantly. The Greenland hoax has done what the Access Hollywood tape couldn't, what January 6th couldn't. It broke the spell because it stole the wallet. The Greenland deal was the perfect Trump scam. Huge, shiny, and completely empty. But this time, he scammed the wrong people. He scammed the world, and he scammed his own fans. And there's no bankruptcy court that can discharge this debt. Hit that subscribe button right now.